Year 1, Day 47. The agency completes its orbital contract and accepts multiple more, including a contract from Blue Dog Design Bureau to send a satellite into orbit around Kerbin. This satellite will collect data on orbital mapping data from above Kerbin and return the camera film via a small re-entry device. A first attempt is launched on a new Fenris Bell launch vehicle, Fenris being the lower stage and Bell being the upper. However, it is untested, and the launch will be unpredictable. The rocket lifts off from the pad and completes a roll maneuver for its polar orbit. However, seconds after launch, one of the first stage fuel tanks develops an oxidizer leak. At this point, it is already known that the mission will not reach orbit. However, it is decided to complete the mission anyway, for the sole purpose of testing the parts. The first stage cuts out, and the Bell is released from the Fenris. However, the interstage SRB misfires, meaning the Fenris sticks with the Bell until the Bell's engine is fired. The Bell burns, but without the full potential of the Fenris, it will not be enough to reach orbit. The stage doesn't reach space. The fairing is deployed to inspect the satellite, and for testing purposes, the return capsule is separated, but again, its SRB misfires. Then the pod suffers a short circuit, and comms is lost. A second attempt is launched. This time, the vehicle has been modified to complete the mission, containing 2 verniers on the Fenris first stage and additional small spherical fuel tanks on the Bell stage. The Fenris's guidance was misaligned, meaning it began pitching east instead of north. However, apart from this minor hiccup, the flight is proceeding well. The Fenris performs flawlessly and falls away from the bell. The bell's engine is ignited, and its apparatus is raised. As it coasts into space, one of the spherical fuel tanks required to reach orbit suffers an oxidizer leak. In fact, both do. With the dead mass of the oxidizer and the lack of fuel, the mission does not have enough Delta V to reach orbit. The bell cuts out, but it has not reached orbit. Spyglass 2 has failed and will fall back down into Kerbin's atmosphere. A third launch is launched using the same launch vehicle and is a carbon copy of Spyglass 2. In addition to this, both mission control and the tracking station have been upgraded in the time of Spyglass 2's mission. This means the guidance system will be able to plot maneuvers ahead of when they actually happen. However, unlike Spyglass 2, all the components have been tested. And it is hoped the mission will perform nominally. The Fenris soars into the upper atmosphere, and its first stage engine cuts out. The SRB on the interstage successfully fires, and the Bell engine ignites, pushing the apparatus to above the Kerman line. The stage begins to coast to apparatus, and it is discovered that, even with the node feature of the guidance system, there is not enough time to burn to get into orbit. The Bell will have to pitch up slightly to avoid itself falling back into the atmosphere. And this succeeds. Bell's burn have to be precise, for the mission has incredibly slim margins. However, orbit is achieved with 257 meters per second of delta V to spare. The satellite coasts over the inland water and science data is collected. Now the film from the camera must be recovered and is sent into the recovery vehicle's pod. The Bell's RCS points the capsule retrograde. And its small solid rocket retro pack fires, pushing the capsule onto a suborbital trajectory. Hibernate mode is turned off, and the small pod re-enters Kerbin's atmosphere. The pod has a limited amount of both ablator and monopropellant, meaning the re-entry will be difficult. Plasma engulfs the capsule. And connection weakens. The plasma shields the capsule from getting any communications from the ground. And the only thing left is to hope. One hour, 1 minute and 30 seconds into the flight, communications is restored and the parachute deploys. The return capsule's heat shield used most of its ablator and is jettisoned. The capsule touches down at Kerbin's north ice cap. And the poor recovery teams have to make their way out to the North Pole. Using the data gained from this flight, multiple tech nodes are researched. Although it is first decided not to research survivability, the agency later changes its mind. The contract has been completed.